Hey, Soul Sparklers, it's all happening.
With a soul sparkle, soul sparkle. With a soul sparkle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul Sparkle Living Show. I'm so excited to have you back with us today and to be joined by my special guest, Rachel Anzalone. Is that
That is the Italian way to say it for sure. But here we say Anzalone.
Anzalone? Okay, I love it. Welcome to the show, Rachel. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks, Hayley. I'm so happy to be here. It was such a pleasure to meet you a couple months ago in person and get to spend a little time together, and very excited about all the things we might dive into today.
I love it. Yes, it was so great to meet you, and that was such a really special event. For those of us that are introverted, which I think you identify most of the time.
For sure. Yeah.
It was really lovely to actually meet so many incredible humans in one space, right? And
Yeah.
I tend to avoid large groups of people. I don't know. I used to be a lot more extroverted, I think, but as I've gotten older, the more I'm just like, I just like my little groups of small people. And we kind of had our little pod of people that I met there. And you were one of those special souls that I just knew that I needed to be connected with. And so I love that we had that opportunity to meet in real life. I think there's nothing better than heart to heart and belly to belly, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I agree. Like big events sometimes feel so overwhelming. And when you get to really kind of step to the side and have some more in depth conversations and get to know a few people well in those spaces, it feels really special.
Yeah, it's lovely. And, I know that events have been part of your journey, uh,
Yeah.
my understanding. And I'd love to maybe just start with a little bit of maybe a little bit about your background, your journey. And I mean, you're working in a whole different realm now and really supporting entrepreneurs in a beautiful and magical way. Do you want to share a little bit about how you got kind of on this path and how you ended up here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say sort of the overarching theme that led me to this place has been this dance between the what we would call like the masculine energy of like the intensity and the just like going all cylinders, getting stuff done, being really hyper focused on business, and then feeling some part of myself that was like, this isn't right, like this isn't everything, and then fully rebelling in the opposite direction like we do sometimes,
I know
and
that.
kind of
Mhm.
yeah, doing this like back and forth between those two, trying to find which of those worlds I really felt like I fit in. And then over decades, the pendulum swing gets smaller and we find that sweet spot that's our own. And so I have had this experience of working in some bigger companies and very like corporate structured environments, especially like having sort of come of age in the 90s and working in the early 2000s, and that like second wave feminism of like, you don't cry. You have to be strong. You have to be tough. You get done what needs to get done. And then just fully rebelling against that and being like, but my body and my soul is craving something completely different. And trying to find the place where those sort of two extremes mix and mingle and dance together. And so that's really where I've landed with my work is I found having this business background that so many of the entrepreneurs I was meeting in the wellness spaces and spiritual spaces and coaching spaces had a lot of resistance to any kind of structure
Yep.
or any kind of strategy. It was almost like they were operating in that space as well of like, I looked at the way that business is done and I don't want to do it that way. So I reject all of that. And then the result of that is this sort of nebulous, kind of hard to pin down, sort of hard to plan for. It can be very elusive and it can feel sometimes very chaotic. And so then often I saw people doing the same thing I was doing, which is like, well, I guess I need a system, and then getting really rigid in a system. And so my work has really been to help people who are more inclined to like the creative, to the inspired, to find ways to do business that are aligned with them, that do provide some structure, but fit that structure within who they are and what speaks to their soul and allows them that creative freedom within the container of something that is actually like productive and sustainable and can create some kind of impact in the world that I think is what everybody really craves to create.
I think it's so, I mean, I don't even know where to begin because it's so important what you're doing because I have been on both sides of those roles as well. It's
Yeah.
a super, super background in corporate strategy, wellness actually was the industry that I was in, made my way to the top of that food chain. And then I was so done when I decided I was done that I was like, and now I'm going to just go the complete opposite direction, flitter around the world and sprinkle sparkles and fairy dust. Like that's all I'm going to do because I had to be so in my masculine energy all the time. I mean, I had like
Yeah.
people, 200 people reported up to me and I had to be the boss of everything all the time. And it was so rigid and so structured that I just wanted the exact opposite. I wanted space and freedom and room to breathe and to travel and all the things, which has been extraordinary. I'm going to have my 10-year anniversary in 6 weeks or so,
Oh, congratulations.
which is super exciting. But to your point, I had to finally come full circle into some hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
Or you're constantly, like you said, it's always iterative. There's never anything grounded or anchored or rooted, you know?
Yes.
You really have to come back to that um, integration, the integrated of the masculine and the feminine side, the creative and the logistics and the details. And I think, having someone like you that can come alongside and provide, like you said, the container, some of that structure is so powerful because it's almost as if the way I always have thought about it is I don't want my feet all the way on the ground because that's boring, but I need like something to be like tethered, like a little bit of
Yeah.
thing with the opportunity to float. And so I think when you have that structure in place of the systems of the container, then you have the ability to be creative within that structure, which to me is the best possible of both worlds.
Yeah. And when you do that, you're then able to accelerate and amplify the message and the impact and what it is that you want to create out in the world. When you're sort of never grounded, it might feel very like fun and creative and expressive and joyful. And if you have a vision to have some sort of larger impact, that requires for there to be a way for people to engage with you and some things that people can rely on. Like, I know when I come to your website, I'm going to find what you're actually doing right now and not what you did 6 months ago because it never got updated or, that kind of stuff that those systems help for you to be able to have the impact that you want to have. And I think that there's such a need for in this time people who are heart-centered and there's so many people who want to do good in the world, and the only way we're really going to be able to have the impact we want to have is to really find the way to integrate those masculine structures and that feminine energy and creativity. And I don't think there's a way that works for everybody. It's the way that works for you, and building that in sort of a like learning to trust yourself to figure out what that looks like for you instead of looking for something you can replicate or step into that somebody else has done before.
Right. And I think that is a key point, like you just said, and I've thought about this a lot over the years of we don't all have to do it the same way. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
look the same way, and even this show, the only reason we're even having this conversation is because I realize that what I enjoy the most about uh, conversations like this is that I do much better when I get to ask questions or when someone
Mm.
asks me questions. So, for example, I had a podcast years ago and I kept trying to force myself to do solo episodes, which I absolutely do not enjoy doing because it's just like me sitting there talking to myself. Like it doesn't, right? I love speaking, I love teaching, but I love for there to be people as part of it versus me just doing it by myself. So I've learned that I won't do it. Like if I don't want to do it, I won't do it if I don't enjoy it. So
Yeah.
this show now, I'm like, this is great. I have at least one phenomenal conversation every week now with people that are rock stars in my world, and it works for me. So I'm I've given myself permission to do the things that I enjoy doing in the way that I want to do it versus forcing myself to do things that I hate doing. And I think
Yeah.
for me, that's been a win, And I'm sure I'm not the only entrepreneur that has that same mindset, right? It's like, let it be easy within your gifts, within your talents, within what you're passionate about. And it doesn't have to look like what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. And as I think what I'm hearing you say is like, and you also have learned ways to create a little bit of structure for yourself. Because if you also are, in this space where you're like, it doesn't have to be like anybody else, I'm going to do this complete other thing that no one's ever heard of in a way that, has never been tested, maybe you'll have some wild success with it. But also, can you look at what other people have done and learn from that and say, like, oh, I'll take this little sliver of that and I'll take this piece of, what that person's doing and mix it all together in a way that works for me. I think I see this a lot with like online marketing campaigns often where it's like, I don't want to be like the bro marketers and do all of this stuff. So instead, I'm just going to like, when I feel inspired, I'll write an email and it'll just be from the heart. And then I'll review that stuff for a client. And I'm like, you didn't tell people what you wanted. You didn't give them any direction. Like, this is beautiful writing, but what am I supposed to do now? You didn't say, like, click here, come join this program, come be in this experience with me. Or, you felt inspired and you wrote that email one time, but me as a consumer, I might need to see two or three or four or five of those from you in frequency. And so we don't want to throw everything out, right? We want to pick the things that work for us and adapt them into the timing and the feeling that is aligned for us.
I love it. I love that you're also focusing on people that have a passion and have a beautiful heart-centered, soul-centered type business and really are truly doing incredible things. Because I think you're right. There are so many right now that are leaning fully into either AI or fully automated. And I feel like they're just missing some of the soul of the work, right? And what
Yeah.
lights it up. And obviously, I do believe that the utilization of technology when appropriate to make it an easier lift or ways to create more structure is beautiful because I think that then gives us more time to do our soul's work, our passion.
Yeah.
But there has to be a hybrid. Are you seeing a lot of people that you're working with having that conversation? Are they kind of struggling? Are they in the space between? Where are your clients on that spectrum?
I feel like everybody's trying to sort out their own relationship with AI and what that looks like. And I think that I've heard from people that have had bad experiences. And I've had some of my own where I ended up in somebody's automated something. And I was like, oh my God, get me out of this. This is awful. And then, on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, well, you could use it. Well, how much do you want to use it and to what extent? And my feeling is that, we have to remember that these tools are like data aggregating tools, right? So like any kind of tool that aggregates data, what you get out of it is equivalent to the quality of what you put into it. And so you have to, and then you also have to know if what you got out of it is any good or not, right? So, like, I could take a spreadsheet and put in a bunch of numbers and formulas and get a bunch of info. But if I don't know if those formulas were correct, if I don't know if the numbers that I put in there were relevant to something specific, then what use is that function? It really doesn't have one. And so my approach to using AI is like, I think, first of all, that it is a hugely democratizing tool in some ways where, those of us who are, small business owners have the ability to use it to sort of magnify or maximize our own time by not having to do every single thing from scratch ourselves, right? And, if you write a bad piece of copy and put it into ChatGPT to have it repurpose, like you write a blog article and it's not well written, then you're going to put it into ChatGPT and ask it to repurpose it into a social media post or, some other things. Those aren't going to be good either. So like you have to know what quality is and you have to know what questions to ask. And that's where I think, I think when we have bad experiences, it's because we are trying to get something out of it that we don't actually know what questions to ask. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if you know what good marketing copy is, then you can use ChatGPT to help you. But if you don't and you just ask ChatGPT to like write a sales page for you, you're probably going to get garbage out, right? Like it's not going to be good. So,
Certainly
yeah.
a level of training I think that needs to go into it. Right.
Yes.
Voice and that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
think me, what I'm noticing, and I don't know about you, but I'm noticing myself feeling less connected to most social media lately because
Hmm.
a lot of it just feels like it's all ChatGPT, you know,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
like it just doesn't, I don't know. I'm having this really interesting time of trying to sort out in my own mind how I want to engage. What's it going to look like in the long term or the short term? Just
Yeah.
where do I want to be now? I don't know. I kind of want to just go all old school and just
Yeah.
post stories and pictures and all the things
Yeah.
that I've always done. But I know that it is evolving. And the truth is this is how we connect to each other right now. And so
Hmm.
how do we decide where to put our energy and put our life force and put our love? Because that's really what we're emanating. And where do you want to do that? And how do you want to do that? These are all questions I ask myself all the time, Rachel.
Yeah. No, I find myself asking the same questions a lot. I learned a term recently uh, called it's enshittification. Are you familiar with this at
Oh,
all?
okay, let me see.
So I will I'm going to paraphrase and I cannot remember the name of the person who coined this term, but it's basically this idea that like these social media platforms, when they're first launched, they're there for the user experience. And so they're designed to create a really great user experience. And then over time, as they acquire more and more users, they evolve to like phase two, which is about monetization. And so then it becomes a great platform for advertisers. And so we start to see more advertising, right? And then they enter, like, once that is sort of played out, then they enter into phase three, which is about making themselves money, like the platform making money. And so it no longer is a good user experience and it's no longer a great experience for businesses to advertise on. It's really becomes all about just the platform making its own money, right? And so Facebook's been there for a while. I feel like Instagram got there in the last couple of years. I'm not super familiar with LinkedIn. I'm sort of starting to play with it, but I'm hearing that that's sort of what's happening on LinkedIn as well. And so there's that happening that is by design of the platform creators. And then simultaneously, there's, I think during COVID, there was this explosion of people teaching people how to teach people how to teach people how to teach people. And so now you go on there and you see all these ads for services and products being sold by people who have no depth of experience or knowledge or really any wisdom to share. They're just sharing a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of what somebody else did. And so we're feeling that too. And so they're kind of terrible places right now in so many ways. Um, and I think I agree with you. This like real live connection and finding those groups even if they're online that you get to actually like build relationships with, like network and be in small group spaces where you get to actually talk to each other about what's really important instead of just seeing somebody's post of whatever. I think is so valuable, and these conversations too.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
really, like, why I started this because I thought I need to have real conversations about things that people are actually thinking about, talking about, like, what's breaking their hearts right now, what are they dreaming of right now? Like,
Yeah.
real things that matter and that are not just, yeah, marketing. I've also found that a lot of people seem to be moving over or at least adding, Substack to their
Yeah.
program, and I have an account, haven't posted anything yet. However, it is on the list because I keep thinking that might be a different vibe, a different energy, frequency of things
Hmm.
so drastically that it's almost harder now for me to be in some of these where I just I feel flat when I'm
Yeah.
there or when I'm done, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
organize myself to where I can be of service, share whatever is going on, whether it be, things that I'm up to, things I'm dreaming about, but in a way that also doesn't make me feel physically uh, not as good. Not as
Yeah. I wonder if you're noticing this at all. It's my experience these days. It seems like so many people are sort of landing in two camps in my world. One is fully obsessed with everything happening in the world and just living in a state of like fear and panic and catastrophizing. And that's what they want to talk about. And that can be really intense. And then on the other end of the spectrum is just completely bypassing. And I feel like my current dance is trying to figure out, like, how much of that can I listen to, be part of? How much of that do I need to do for self-preservation? And then what's my actual work to do to be able to show up every day and, like, be productive and be functional and be, in this world that we live in the way that it is right now.
I can tell you what I really think.
Tell me.
So, in my opinion, there are, and you already know this, you just described it. But for those that are listening, this might help make a little more sense of it. There is a bifurcation, there's a splitting of timeline.
Mhm.
There's a higher timeline, like an organic, holy, divine timeline, in my opinion. And there's more of a lower timeline, which is the one you spoke about, which is a lot more fear based, a lot more what's going on, needing to know everything, and allowing, and not to say that the things that are happening are not worthy of our time, prayers, the thought, all of the love and all the things and heartbreak, because there is a lot of that. However, I feel like there's different people that have different jobs, if you will, different purposes,
Mm.
right? And so some of us, it is to anchor that higher timeline, like the one that is really bringing heaven, like it's the heaven on earth timeline, really. It's the next evolution of where we're going. We can go there and start to anchor that in. And it's our frequency and our joy and our light and our love, unconditional love and grace. That's where we need to be at some point on the journey. And if we stay too in tune with the other timeline, then that's going to be our reality, right? So if we truly believe that we are co creating and creators of our own reality and our experience, then I want to help anchor in that higher timeline
Yeah.
for more people to be there without disregarding, without dismissing, but just not focusing 1,000% on that. Because again, if we focus all of our energy and life force on that, then we're not creating what is in the highest possible outcome for humanity.
Yeah. And so then it feels like the dance is like, where's the place between where I'm leaning into that and I'm tapping into that and I'm actively working to cultivate that in a true and authentic way that is not bypassing, right? And also is acknowledging what's happening. So it's really like everything we're talking about is like that middle ground and all the shades of gray and how we each have our own unique way of being and our own unique gifts to bring. And the way to do that to the highest capacity is to tap into what is right for us and not necessarily. And I don't mean what's like best for us. I mean what's most aligned for us, so that we can contribute that way and not be getting pulled in these other directions that aren't our work to do.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And we know that, as within, so without, right? So
yeah,
um, if I am the embodiment of peace and love and joy and grace, then that's what I'm going to emanate into my field, in my neighborhood, in my, what is it? The Hawkins scale, it says like for everyone that's at love or above, you affect like 750,000 people.
yeah,
Quite remarkable if you think about it. So I would want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is maintaining my frequency and my energy at that level versus being in fear and all the other things that are going to not just affect me, but everything and everyone around me as well. I mean, we're much
yeah,
more powerful than we've been taught, and we have a lot more ability to impact change when we do it from that space versus the other options,
yeah.
Again, there's no judgment because that's not something you wanna be in either, but at the same time, if you can hold yourself in that frequency of those higher levels of consciousness, that's what we're going to then plant for that new higher timeline.
Yeah. And there is a difference between being in judgment about it and being in awareness. And I find often that my work is to help my clients with that awareness piece of where they might be speaking from a stage, or writing the copy, or in conversation where they're sharing a message, but then sometimes the translation of that into the practical tangible pieces of business, there's a disconnect, and they don't see it because they're in it so deeply. And so my work often is to be the mirror that's reflecting, like, hey, if you're on stage talking about love and the power that we have to create our own world and our own experience, then you can't then simultaneously be in your business and be in fear and hustle and out of integrity with your team or with what you're delivering, and not have there be like an energetic break that either is going to come back at you at some point, or you're just taking like whatever you amplified out there and you're bringing it back down. And then you go back on the stage and you amplify it and then you bring it back down in reality. Where if we can get these things in line, then everything you do out there in the world is just going to have that much more ripple effect, that much bigger impact.
Yeah, and what you're trying to help them do is just stay in alignment,
Yeah.
right? Like, stay in their truth and be if they're going to well, if they're gonna talk the talk, they need to walk the walk. Like, that's just
Yes.
the nature of all of it, and I think that's where it is interesting in this, in these online internet streets, like, in a corporate environment, you're with people in real life all day, every day, and so you can't hide from it.
Mm,
But I do think that there's an element of almost like a disconnect from their public persona or their online persona versus their in real life. And one of the things that I've always taken as such a compliment when people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're exactly the same in real life as you are online." I'm like, "Well, how else would I?"
yeah,
But I do think that there is an element of like performance.
for sure.
And I think that people are just craving, especially now with all this opportunity for not automation, but like making twins and copying your voice
Yeah.
and I'm like, wow, you almost just I just want to double down on like, let's just be real. Like this is real. This
Yeah.
is, my hair is this is L'Oreal number 9. This is right now. But I mean
Yeah.
things like that, but just like being real and being authentic. And actually I was talking to a friend the other day about the frequency of authenticity, which now they believe
Mm,
that is the highest frequency.
yeah.
I did this little exercise the other day around I usually have my little pendulum. Oh, it's right here. And I check in and I was asking, does so and so, does this person elevate my frequency? Does it make it higher or lower? And it wasn't a question that I had really, really like taken a deep dive into. And I thought what was interesting is the ones where I am the most authentic, like there are no filters. You can say whatever you need to say. You're not going to be judged. They're your people. And I thought those were the ones when I checked were the highest yes for the highest frequency because you can
Mm,
choose. Isn't that cool?
yeah, that is really great.
Those people maybe that can have that level of truth telling or conversation. And I think too, it is when you're online, it's like, who are all these people? Do I really know all these people? You don't know all these people
Yeah.
that level. But I love that what you're doing is also helping them tell their story and speak their truth in a way that feels so aligned for them because people feel that too. They can feel, you know,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. The work that you're doing is allowing them to stay in that integrity. And to your point, sometimes it's hard to do that on your own all the time. And you serve as, like you said, that mirror to be like, hey, you might want to double check this bit because it doesn't sound quite aligned, you know? I love it.
Yeah, and there's that aspect of, so many this is I think this is one of the, like, the little tricks, one of the little traps we get caught in sometimes is that the very, like, tactical stuff sometimes can work really well for the purpose it was intended for. And so, for example, if you use these, what I like feel to me is often very like yucky kind of tactics that are like scarcity, fear based, urgency, like what are you in pain about? And how's this going to solve your problem? Like those kind of tactics. Guess what? That generates a lot of money because a lot of people are tuned into that vibration and they like feel that and they're ready and willing to like throw their money at it. And if that is your only goal is to make money, then that's going to do the thing, you know? But if your goal is to attract people who are aligned, people who are going to really have a meaningful experience from the work that you do, then you don't need to use those. And in fact, if you use those, you're going to repel those people because it's not going to feel resonant to them.
Such a great point. It's so interesting. And we have our sweet mutual friend, April. April
Yes.
always, um, always just encouraged me, just keep telling your stories, like keep telling stories. And really, that's how I built my entire business. And, all I do is share stories and travels and dreams. And I make invitations without expectation. Like,
Mm.
what if we did this? Wouldn't it be fabulous? And I'm so excited about it. And that's been the most magnetizing thing that I've done. And every other time when I've tried to do the thing that I'm supposed to do,
Yeah.
it feels gross and doesn't work.
Uh,
And I'm like, oh, if I have to schedule a certain thing at a certain time or do it in a certain way or follow a certain thing, I'm not very good at following rules. I'm sure I'm not the only one in your world that
Most of us aren't.
um I just find that like you said, the more real it is and the less tactical sometimes it feels better. And I do think it is a resonance. It creates a resonance that I don't think you can create when you're using ChatGPT all the time or like whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
resonant, I don't think energetically, which like you said, you might be making money, but you're not probably working with the people that you really are like soul clients that you would or dream clients that you'd really love to spend time with maybe, right? So that's
yeah.
such an important point that I hadn't really thought about recently, but that makes a lot of sense because I don't think people um take into consideration as much of that resonance that maybe is lacking when they follow the structure sometimes.
Yeah, and so it's, kind of back to where we started. It's like sometimes you have to learn the structure first and try it out and then break the rules in the way that works for you, you know? And so anything that we have learned or experienced, like anything courses that we've bought, like I'm sure we've all had experiences where we like bought a course or a program or enrolled in something and then we're disappointed or frustrated with the way that it was delivered or the experience we had. I always feel like, okay, well, what's the lesson from that? Like, what did I learn from that? Because it might not be what I thought I signed up for, but it might be something either in terms of like outside objective stuff of like, what did they do that I didn't like that I want to make sure I don't do? Or what am I going to look for in the future before I make an investment like that? Or it might be something really more internal of like, wow, I really need to learn how to trust myself better because there was a part of me that knew that this wasn't a good idea. And then the FOMO part of me was like, no, but you have to go do it and sign up for it right now, you know?
Both of those are so spot on. So I've done both of those.
Yeah.
I remember before this is probably like 12 years ago. I went to a retreat because I really wanted to figure out like, is this something I want to start doing and bring into my business? And my best friend went with me and we sat there and wrote down pages and pages of notes of what I would not want to do. I do not want my people to feel like this.
Mm,
I would not do it this way. I would do it this way. Like it really was an eye opener, to explore how I would want people to feel in my containers and my events and experiences. And then the other thing is the trusting, like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the key. Like, you have to trust yourself. You know that you know that you know. And I think we're taught from a young age to outsource our knowing.
Yeah.
We seek outside ourselves for approval, validation, etc. So when you're trying new things, sometimes you think, "Oh, I need someone else to tell me what to do." And sometimes you actually do, right?
Yeah, you need to, like, learn the process. You need to learn the thing. Yeah.
Well, I do think that the level of confidence comes from trusting yourself and doing the things that you know to be true, and trying to hopefully quiet that little FOMO voice in the back of your mind.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of for so many of us, I think in like our era, that this point we get into and you're, I don't know, and somewhere in your 40s, maybe around your mid 40s and into your 50s and 60s is like, well, I've done all the things, I've made all the mistakes. I've gained all this wisdom and that, I see people for me it's been almost 15 years. I think it's been 15 years this fall that I've been self-employed or and in this sort of entrepreneurial space. And 15 years ago, the spaces I was in where people were in their 20s and in their early 30s were talking about thought leadership, thought leadership, thought leadership. And it's like, well, you can't be a thought leader until you have experienced enough things that you can integrate and formulate your own perspective that's based in wisdom. And let's not forget that half of that phrase is leadership. And leadership means that you are so truly grounded in who you are and what you know that you can be an example for other people. It's not just about standing on a stage and speaking words or writing a book. It's about being fully integrated and that you have wisdom from experience. And that is I think like the beauty of what I feel like so many of the people in my world are finding in their 40s and 50s and 60s.
Oh, absolutely. And even if it's like, I know there's people have all kinds of backgrounds and experience, but it's like being a life coach at like 21. I'm like, oh, sugar, bless your heart. There's a lot, there's just so much life,
Yeah.
before being able to really, I would say, be a guide. But
Mm.
yeah, I feel like the journey of that is one that until you have been in those positions, I mean, I'm just having these flashbacks of all these years of leading people, and one of the things that when I started to just go out on my own, I was like, wow, I've always been so responsible for so many people that it was kind of a shock to my system to be like, oh, wait, now I'm doing my own thing. I don't have to worry about anyone else, just me. It was a wild transition, and one that I don't think that many people, at least in my experience, have really talked about, shared, going from that corporate environment or going from a leadership position to running your own thing. That was a
Yeah.
major, major shift for me. And, I remember thinking, wow, going from people need you all day long, all day, every day, all day, to like no one's asking you anything. And I'm like, what's going on? It was, it was such a major, major thing. And so I don't know that people that have gone through that transition have any support or anything. I didn't. I was just like, well, I'm just making it up as I went. I'm sure you probably did as well,
Yeah,
but
for sure. Yeah.
it's a wild ride to go from, it's also an identity thing. I don't know if a lot of your clients go through the shifting from an identity perspective, but like who you are in these different roles in different parts of your journey, and how do you navigate those with as much ease as possible.
Yeah.
And, I mean, at least for me, I think I was 40 when I left my more traditional path and just kind of flittered it out into the ethers around the world. But I know that it was definitely challenging, which is why I also think the way you support your clients is so beautiful because they're not alone. And
Mhm.
they have like a guidepost almost versus just being out to sea on their own, which I think is beautiful that you've created that opportunity for almost like for them to shine beautifully and brightly, but with the anchor that you have that you're supporting them. I think that's really a lovely hybrid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I like that anchor example. This idea of moving from like the corporate where everybody needs you for everything all the time to being like fully self-sufficient and kind of figuring it out on your own as you go to what I think is the third phase, which is, and now I have this wisdom to share with the collective. Right? And I think that I think that's part of the evolution that's happening in the industries that we're talking about and collectively is, we talked about this sort of guru model of like, the infallible teacher and that's people don't really want that. People want to hear the messy story. They want the authenticity. They want to know like that you've been through it too and that you have learned something along the way and you have wisdom to share, and that means not being shiny and polished and owning your mistakes and sort of all of that is, I think, where things are evolving into, that just feels like so much more authentic and aligned and beautiful, and those are the spaces, speaking back to this idea of like, where are we spending our time and our energy, that doesn't feel like it's happening in a lot of those spaces. It feels like it's happening in these kind of spaces where it's like two of us talking or three of us or five of us, where we can be vulnerable and real and authentic. And so I think more and more of that, please. Yeah.
I think you're right. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. It's, one of the things April and I were talking about the other day too. It's just these, she was in the parking lot of the school drop off for her daughter's junior year or whatever, right? Like her last year, maybe. Yeah, I think it's her junior year. And she's like, yeah, and I cried a little in the parking lot. And I'm just like, you know what? You are not the only one that cried in the school parking lot today, right? And I
Yeah.
think you need to know that no matter how beautiful you show up online, no matter how consistent you are, there are still things that happen behind the scenes that are very real and very heartbreaking sometimes. And you still have to show up, like you said. And there are days when I'm like, lead yourself, lead yourself,
Mm,
lead yourself, Haley. I have to like,
yeah.
do the thing, and sometimes that's all you can do is show up and do the thing and take one day at a time. And I hope that these conversations will help inspire people wherever they are in their journey, right? Just to be more of themselves, because I think that's what the world needs is more of our light, more of the truth, more of our love, like, and more grace. I mean, good night. Lord knows we need all more grace, but
Yeah.
I love that you've created a path and a life that feels so real, and I knew it when I met you. I was like, oh, she's my people.
Yeah, what you said about like, well, how else would I be? I feel that 100 like what performance would I put on? What would I be? And that sounds like a lot of work. I don't I don't have any desire to do that much work to try to put on some image of, who I'm supposed to be in the world. Like there's one version.
Yeah, and I think how exhausting to try,
Yeah.
you know, to be something else. It's interesting because I'm, I'm from Oklahoma, right? And so there are words in the way that I speak. Not that I have a lot of accent, but I say like dung and sugar. And it's just funny because I notice when I try to modify and not be normal, it mucks it up. Like I get really awkward. So I'm just like, you know what? That's how I speak. So I'm just gonna do that, and
Yeah.
that's be for everyone. But we're not meant to be for everyone. We're meant for those that are meant to be in our world, right? So I think, in closing of this conversation, if anything that our listeners take away, it's like be more of yourself, bring more of yourself to the table, lead yourself, be more authentic. Is there anything else that you think would be of good, wise counsel for them if they're
Yeah, and surround yourself with people who you can do that with, who are also doing that. Like surround yourself with good community, people you don't have to put on a show for, people who aren't performing, people who you're not trying to keep up with, but who are celebrating you and supporting you in your growth and your expansion, and that you're doing the same for them. I think that community is like the most valuable thing.
absolutely, I love that you said that. I'm actually in the process of building and creating just that a community of just open-hearted, open-minded, big dreamers, visionaries. They have hearts for service, but they also love to be in real life for fabulous experiences, because those are all things that I'm passionate about. And I think we do, you're right, need to surround ourselves with more people that we can have these types of elevated conversations about things that matter to us and that we can dream the next thing into being. And I
Mm,
that when, two or more are together, that's when the magic unfolds. So I love
yeah,
it. Thank you so much, Rachel,
amazing.
for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved this conversation for sure.
Have hours and hours and
I
hours.
know. We could go on 16 more tangents. Thank you so much, though. It was amazing.
Thanks for everyone that's listening today. We'd love for you to tune into the next episode, leave a review, share it if you'd like, and sending so much love.
Sparkle with a soul sparkle.